Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're doing day 17, more exceptions. In the previous challenge, we learned how we can manage exceptional statements by using try and catch blocks. To be specific, we can use the try and catch blocks to encapsulate lines of codes that can potentially raise an error or an exception. And if we do that, then the script will try to recover from it and by executing the statements that is under the except block. For today's challenge, we'll be practicing throwing and propagating an exception instead. So for this task, we have to write a calculator class with a single method, power. Power takes in two parameters, n and p, and its job is to return n to the power of p. So if either n or p is negative, then the method must throw an exception with the message n and p should be non-negative. So for this question, the input is already handled for us, as well as the output. So for us, our only job is to implement the calculator class with that power method that was mentioned. So with that, let's get started. The first thing we'll do is define the class calculator. And in this case, notice on line 5, for the constructor doesn't take in any parameters. So what this means is that there is no need for us to override the standard constructor that is associated with every class. The only thing that we have to do is define the power function. So we will define power, and in this case, because it is an instance method, we will pass in self to refer to the object itself. Next is n and p, which are both integers, and you return back an integer. So here is where the magic will be. The first thing that we will check is whether if n is less than 0 or p is less than 0. And if that's the case, then according to the task, that is an invalid input. So what we can do is raise an exception to tell the user of the function that this is not expected. So we can put in the function message, in this case n and p should be non-negative. So notice in this case, exception is really an object of type exception. And in this case, the exception class takes in one parameter in this constructor, which is n and p should be non-negative. This is a string, and this will be printed in the console when this exception is raised. So that's pretty much it for raising the exception. Our only job now is to return. In this case, if it passes the statement check on line 4, if n and p are both not negative, then what we will do is return n to the power of p. So that's pretty much it. Let's run this against the sample test cases. They passed, and they passed the overall test cases as well. So that's pretty much it for this challenge. In summary, we learned how we can raise exceptions using the raise keyword, and the raise keyword would take in an object of type exception or error. In this case, for this question, we only deal with exceptions. And we also learned how we can create our own exception object. In this case, we use the exception constructor to create an exception object. And in the constructor, we passed in an error message to reflect inside the console if it errors out. And that's pretty much it for this question. If you find this useful, please give us a like and subscribe, and we will see you in the next challenge.